Usually when you read a spiritual or ideological manifesto, the imagery is just fiercely combative.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
it's all about being a warrior for a cause,
Yeah.
right? Fighting a crusade against the darkness or holding the line against some invading moral decay.
Right. It's aggressive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You read it and you feel like you're supposed to, I don't know, put on armor and pick up a sword.
Yeah. I mean, the prevailing metaphor for most radical movements is the battlefield. It creates a very clean binary worldview. Us versus them.
Right.
The righteous conquerors against the wicked enemies. It's simple.
It is. But then you open the text we're diving into today,
Yeah.
and suddenly that armor is just gone.
Right.
We're looking at a spiritual landscape that is framed completely differently.
Yeah, it's definitely not a battlefield.
No, it's a triage center. And today, for this deep dive, we are unpacking exactly how that triage center operates.
It's a fascinating shift in perspective.
Truly. We're looking at a manifesto from a group called Lifechanyuan. It's titled, We Are Nurses of the Greatest Creator. And it's authored by Zhuofeng, with translation and editing by Kinyu.
And for you listening, this text is, well, it's basically a masterclass in how a highly specific community constructs meaning and purpose in an overwhelmingly complex world.
Yeah, it's wild. Reading this text, it's a bit jarring because it's not just a philosophical exercise. It's a literal blueprint.
Right. It attempts to engineer a utopian society using this profoundly fatalistic yet strangely optimistic view of human nature. We're looking at a group that has decided to step entirely outside the standard operating procedures of modern society.
Totally. And to understand how they build this worldview, we really have to look at the title and their core identity first.
A nurse metaphor.
Yeah, like calling yourselves nurses of the greatest creator immediately shifts the paradigm. Because a nurse implies healing, bedside manner, caretaking.
Empathy, really?
Exactly. It implies that if you're a nurse, your primary relationship with the outside world is that you have a patient.
Right.
Which, that must mean they view the rest of the world as fundamentally sick or wounded. Right?
They absolutely do. And the text takes that medical analogy to its logical conclusion. The followers state that their hearts bear a, quote, bitterness unknown to others.
A bitterness.
Wow. Yeah, they carry this bitterness because the suffering of the world is literally their suffering. They believe they've diagnosed the root causes of all human misery, and they're just watching a sickness spread completely out of control.
They're watching people, as the text says, rush toward hell, and it just fills them with profound anxiety. They want to halt this course,
right.
Pull people out of the abyss.
But the crucial part of this nurse metaphor, and this is so important, is the emotional detachment from judgment.
Right. Because a nurse doesn't hate a patient who comes into the ER with, like, a self-inflicted injury.
Exactly. You don't yell at the guy who accidentally shot himself in the foot.
You just stop the bleeding.
Yes. The manifesto explicitly notes that their hearts hold no hatred for the people destroying themselves, only deep regret and sighs.
Deep regret and sighs. It's a deeply empathetic, albeit sorrowful, view of humanity.
It is. They're watching a tragedy unfold and trying to administer spiritual first aid. And to do this, they claim the historical responsibility of saving lives by acting as the inheritors of a massive global synthesis of wisdom.
And this is where my jaw kind of dropped. Because they don't just pull from one tradition. They specifically list Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, and Lao Tzu as their foundational lineage.
It's quite the list.
That is a wild roster. You got Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, and Taoism all rolled into one framework.
Structurally, it is a brilliant piece of syncretism. If you're trying to build a comprehensive spiritual triage center, you need different tools for different wounds.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. So from Jesus, they adopt the concept of the suffering servant and atonement. From Buddha, they pull the absolute detachment from worldly desires.
Okay, Muhammad.
From Muhammad, the framework of total submission to the divine will of the greatest creator. And then from Lao Tzu, they integrate the mechanics of cosmic balance and non-contention.
Wow. It's like they looked at world history, pulled the most potent psychological mechanisms from each major tradition, and just wove them into a single unified theory of existence.
That's exactly what they did. They say that truth flows through their blood, and profound love for life, spelled in all caps, in the text resides in their marrow.
And they believe they possess boundless power bestowed by the greatest creator, but because of that Buddha-Jesus blend, they don't use this power to dominate. They use it entirely to serve.
Right. But, you can't administer a cure to a sick world if you're getting infected by the exact same disease.
Oh, true. You need spiritual PPE.
Exactly. Which brings us to the behavioral code of Lifechanyuan. The text strictly defines the essence of life as devotion and giving.
Devotion and giving, okay.
Yeah, and they believe any form of plundering, possessing, or taking leads directly to the withering of life.
Which, when you think about it, requires a radical renunciation of basically every modern societal norm we take for granted.
Pretty much all of them, yeah.
They actively refuse this massive laundry list of behaviors, like fighting, embezzlement, accepting bribes, oppressing the weak, scheming, contending, harming nature.
They stay away from absolutely all of it.
When others act selfishly, they demand selflessness. But the friction of living this way in the modern world has to be immense. How does a community even function if no one is allowed to contend for resources?
Well, they solve this by fully embracing material impoverishment. The text states they do not seek to possess anything, because all possessions will eventually be lost anyway.
So they just give it up from the start.
Right. They claim this material poverty is exactly what makes them rich in spirit and soul.
This sounds almost mathematical to me. Like an inescapable ledger where every earthly gain triggers a spiritual deduction. It feels like they're operating under a strict law of cosmic thermodynamics or something.
They actually have a term for that exact mechanism.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they call it the fairness of the Tao.
The fairness of the Tao.
Yes. The text lays out this law very clearly. What is gained must be lost, and what is given will be rewarded. To them, cause and effect is an absolute unforgiving physics of the soul.
Wow.
If you amass wealth, status, or power in this world, if you gain it through scheming or contending, you're essentially taking out a spiritual payday loan with a ruinous interest rate.
A spiritual payday loan. That is such a good way to put it. That debt will inevitably lead to a massive loss.
Exactly.
So they're playing a long-term game of spiritual accounting. Modern hustle culture screams at us to gain, right?
Yeah.
Accumulate assets, build your brand, secure your territory.
And Lifechanyuan looks at that exact same accumulation and just sees a toxic liability. By giving away everything and refusing to compete, they're keeping their cosmic balance sheet perfectly clean.
And that completely re-engineers how they interact with the world. But, I mean, it also introduces a massive practical problem.
How so?
Well, you're playing this accounting game where you must give away everything to ultimately win, right? And you're trying to save people who are, by your own definition, sick and losing their minds.
Ah, right, yes.
If you are materially poor and you walk up to someone who is rich, scheming, and deeply embedded in the modern hustle, and you try to give them spiritual first aid, they aren't going to thank you.
No, probably not.
They're going to laugh in your face. Or worse, the patient is going to attack the nurse.
They definitely are. But the authors are incredibly pragmatic about this reality. They acknowledge that if people have lost reason, they will actively turn against the nurses in resentment.
So how do they handle that?
Their response to this rejection introduces a really fascinating psychological tool, a complete surrender of their external locus of control.
Okay, unpack that a bit. Explain how that works for them in practice.
So, in psychology, your locus of control is where you believe the power over your life resides. If you have an internal locus, you believe you control your outcomes.
Right, like, I make my own destiny.
Exactly. But if you have an external locus, you believe outside forces, fate, society, or God dictate what happens. Most driven, ambitious people have a highly internal locus of control. They try to force outcomes.
Yeah, they push until they get what they want.
But Lifechanyuan deliberately adopts a fatalistic external locus of control when it comes to other people. The text literally says, helplessly, we do what we can, leaving it to fate whether they understand.
Helplessly, we do what we can. That phrasing is so striking. There's no desperate clinging to the result. They don't try to force the cure down anyone's throat.
No, they explicitly state they accept good or ill as his arrangement, meaning the greatest creator. By completely surrendering their earthly locus of control, leaving the results entirely to fate, they paradoxically gain total psychological control over their own peace of mind.
Well, that makes sense, because their only job is to offer the care.
Right. If the patient refuses, they don't experience it as a personal failure. They just move on. It makes them psychologically bulletproof against rejection.
But wait, you can't practice spiritual accounting in radical poverty in the middle of, like, a modern capitalist city. You'd just be crushed by the machinery of society.
You absolutely would.
To survive their own cure, they had to build an entirely separate ecosystem. They can't just float in the ether.
And that ecosystem is Lifechanyuan itself.
Oh, so it's not just the philosophy?
No, it isn't just the name of their belief system. It's the physical and spiritual space they inhabit. It's the hospital where the nurses retreat when the shift is over. The text describes it as the home of our spirit and soul.
Okay, the imagery they use to describe this space is super vivid, but for me, it introduces a massive thematic tension.
Oh, so?
Well, first they call it an oasis in the desert. They say they transplant the fruit trees of human wisdom into this oasis to provide shade and sustenance.
Right.
They also describe it as a clear stream where the followers are like sailfish, letting life breathe the air of freedom.
It's incredibly idyllic, a very peaceful retreat.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But then, paragraphs later, they drop another metaphor that completely upends that peaceful tone. They call Lifechanyuan today's Noah's Ark,
Ah, yes.
a sanctuary where they firmly believe every life will find salvation. Think about those two metaphors side by side.
They are very different.
An oasis implies a harsh but completely static surrounding environment. The desert is hot and barren, sure, but it's not actively hunting you. You can build a permanent life in an oasis.
Right, you just stay by the water.
But Noah's Ark. That implies an impending catastrophic flood. The environment isn't static, it's actively trying to drown you. And the Ark is a temporary, desperate vehicle for survival. So is this community meant to be a permanent, peaceful retreat, or a lifeboat to survive imminent destruction?
That tension you're pointing out is actually the core engine of their community, and the text reveals that Lifechanyuan functions as both simultaneously.
Both.
It is essentially a mobile oasis. Later in the manifesto, they refer to themselves as a, quote, group of warriors trekking the arduous path toward the highest realm of life.
Okay, so the journey itself is active and dangerous.
Precisely. Lifechanyuan is the protective hull of the ship that makes this arduous path survivable. The text notes that within Lifechanyuan, the virtuous often gather, journeying together across the world.
Wow.
So it's an oasis because it provides spiritual shade from the barren selfishness of the outside world they just rejected. And inside this space, they call themselves celestial academicians.
I love that phrase, celestial academicians.
Yeah.
It frames their isolation not as hiding or fleeing, but as studying. They aren't running away, they're running a research station.
Exactly. It elevates their daily lives into a scholarly pursuit of the divine. And within this research station, they practice total mutual care. When one faces hardship, everyone helps. When one celebrates, everyone shares the joy.
But outside the hull of that research station.
Outside, the world, the people rushing toward hell, is engaged in a self-destructive flood of its own making. So the Ark shields them from being swept away by the societal flood, while the oasis provides the nourishment to keep rowing.
Which brings us to the ultimate cost of admission for this Ark. I mean, refusing all worldly pleasures, embracing poverty, sharing all your resources, and dedicating your life to treating a hostile world. That requires massive, fundamental personal sacrifice.
It does, the total commitment.
So what is the ultimate payoff? What's the final destination for a nurse of the greatest creator?
The payoff is tied to a rather stark, almost jarring admission in the text. After all this talk of oases and clear streams, they state flat out, we did not come to this world merely to enjoy it, but primarily to atone for our sins.
Whoa, that is a heavy sentence.
Yeah, it really is.
It reframes their entire earthly existence as a period of penance. Like, you aren't here to have a good time, you're here to serve out a sentence.
They believe that only through continuous repentance and prayer, and by maximizing their talents to dedicate all their efforts to the land, can they hope to return to their heavenly homeland.
Heavenly homeland.
Yes. They're working to secure blessings in their next life, aiming to ascend to what they call higher spaces of life.
And the text mentions a very specific destination, right? They firmly believe all this sweat and sacrifice won't flow in vain because the 1,000-year world is beckoning us.
Yes, the 1,000-year world, that is the end game.
And honestly, analyzing this structure, it reminds me of a grueling, old-school video game leveling system.
A video game. Okay, the mechanics are remarkably similar, actually. Walk us through that comparison.
Okay, think about it. You're born into this lower-level map Earth.
Right.
And you don't play this map to explore the scenery or build a cool house. You're grinding.
Yeah.
You are grinding through brutally tough, repetitive challenges specifically to atone for past mistakes and gain experience points.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
As you walk through the map, there are all these in-game power-ups scattered around. Worldly fame, fortune, sensory delights, luxury, but you actively ignore all of them.
Because picking them up triggers that fairness of the Tao we talked about earlier?
Exactly. In this specific game, putting that gold in your inventory actually lowers your karma score for the next round. It weighs you down so much that you can't pass through the final door. You endure the grind, and you leave the gold on the ground solely to unlock the ultimate endgame map, the thousand-year world.
It's the ultimate delay of gratification.
Seriously.
But, a skeptic looking at this framework would immediately point out a glaring flaw.
What's
Doesn't this make their current earthly lives inherently miserable? If you believe you are only here to atone and you refuse all earthly comforts, aren't you just suffering through a bleak existence?
Well, yeah, that's the logical assumption. If your entire life is a triage shift in an ER, you're going to burn out. You just are.
But the text explicitly counters this assumption by showing how they've completely hacked their own psychological reward system. There's a crucial quote where the author writes that whether their life journey is smooth or rough matters little.
Wait, it matters little. How can poverty or hardship matter little?
Because the only metric of success they recognize is whether each step firmly takes them closer to the ideal shore of life.
Oh, wow.
They view themselves as ordinary members of humanity who stand apart purely through this mission. Because their eyes are locked so entirely on that thousand-year world, earthly fame and sensory delights hold literally zero currency for them.
It's cognitive reframing on a massive scale. Like,
Mm.
if you don't value wealth, you simply don't suffer when you are poor. You just don't feel a sense of lack. And
Exactly.
if you don't value status, you don't feel humiliated when the outside world mocks you.
Their definition of a glorious life has absolutely nothing to do with earthly success. A glorious life is maximizing their wisdom and dedicating their efforts to the land to secure that next phase of existence.
So the hardship isn't miserable to them, it's just the necessary friction of a moving vehicle.
Right. It's the work of a nurse on a long shift who knows they get to go to a perfect home when this shift is over.
Man, so let's step back and look at the architecture of this worldview we've just unpacked. We started with this group's core identity as spiritual nurses, carrying a massive syncretic blend of wisdom from Jesus, Buddha, Mohammed, and Lao Tzu to treat a sick world.
And we saw how that triage mentality demands a radical rejection of modern materialism.
Right.
Because they believe the world's sickness is caused by plundering and scheming, they just refuse to participate in it, trusting entirely in the unforgiving ledger of the fairness of the Tao. Every worldly gain is a spiritual loss.
And to survive that radical, fatalistic choice, they engineered Lifechanyuan, this physical and spiritual ecosystem, an oasis in the desert of humanity, and an ark to ride out the flood of societal destruction. A research station of celestial academicians practicing complete mutual care.
All of which serves their ultimate singular quest, grinding through the earthly map, atoning for their sins through hard work and selflessness, so they can drop their heavy inventory and ascend to the thousand-year world.
For anyone listening, even if the idea of a thousand-year world or a cosmic accounting ledger feels entirely foreign to your own beliefs, exploring a manifesto like this is just a profound exercise in understanding human psychology.
It really demonstrates the incredible reality-bending power of a unified narrative.
It shows how deep conviction and a shared communal mission can completely rewire a person's definition of hardship, wealth, and community. What looks like extreme poverty, isolation, and sacrifice to the modern capitalist world is, to them, spiritual riches and absolute unbreakable freedom.
By giving up control over the world, they gained complete control over themselves.
Exactly. It challenges us to interrogate our own default settings. The things society assumes are absolutely necessary for happiness, status, possessions, competitive advantage, they're just deliberately discarded here.
And in their place, they claim to have found a profound inner peace and a bulletproof purpose.
It is a staggering amount to chew on. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to ponder on your own. It circles back to where we started and that tension we discussed about their sanctuary, the Ark and the Triage Center.
The dual nature of their mission.
Right. We talked about how they view themselves as nurses treating a sick world, and their community as today's Noah's Ark, offering a lifeboat of salvation. But human nature is an incredibly tricky, volatile thing, even for those with the most noble, self-sacrificial aspirations.
Oh, definitely.
So ask yourself this. If a community truly believes they're operating a triage center inside a lifeboat, at what point does the biological instinct for self-preservation kick in?
Wow, yeah.
The floodwaters are rising, the patients are hostile, and the resources inside the ark are shared but finite. At what point does human nature cause the focus to shift from inviting sick, resentful strangers onto the boat to pulling up the ladder, bolting the doors, and bracing for the storm?
It is the ultimate stress test of any utopian vision. How long can the oasis remain open before the desert swallows it?
Something to think about the next time you consider what it really costs to try and save the world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.